obviously, like I know whenever I'm trying to settle a case, I always want to settle it under authority, even
Sure.
if it's like $500 under
Absolutely.
authority. Like I just want it to be under because it just there's optics to that, and
Yeah.
and sometimes sometimes it's hard, or sometimes the case is going to settle for X and you get Y, which is 10,000 less than X, and you just know it's not. You just know it's not going to get there, and by some miracle of nature you get it done for the max. But I mean, every case is different, but
Sure.
your goal should always, at least my goal is always to get it under, because
Yeah, no, and I again, I appreciate that. There are times you're not, right? I mean, there are times it's not going to happen. In my group's going to have to make the decision on the carrier side. You know what? We're just not going to take that risk, right? It doesn't make a lot of sense. And again, from my perspective, I understand that. My team understands that. From when I look for attorneys, I don't want somebody to feel bad about that, right? Because it's ultimately my team's decision. Counsel's trying to put me in the best position and give me their expertise, insight, or whatever, and I have to make that call. And it's okay, right? But it's just those ones where all of a sudden, where somebody comes and tells me, you know what, you're gonna need an extra $100,000. That doesn't fly with me.
yeah,
And
and
that's
that might be the last time you work with that
yeah,
attorney.
that's the problem for me. That's the one that always gets me.
Yeah.
Because like what happened in the period of like an hour that
Right.
changed that.
Well, and that's just the thing. Like, if you're at that point at mediation, you should your case. There aren't any huge surprises. Like,
Shouldn't be.
there shouldn't be. I mean, sure, there are outliers. Maybe something happened. I don't know, but
Yeah,
the
the only
majority.
outlier is usually somehow the plaintiff's attorneys all of a sudden will drop. Here's an extra 50 to 75 grand in meds that, oh, by the way, we just found, or there's another 100,000 in lost wages that all of a sudden has appeared out of nowhere, right? And then my question is always like, well, why am I hearing about this now? Is there anything we could have done to have gotten that information before? So I'm not coming into the mediation getting blindsided by this, because then that puts us on the defensive, and then
Right.
it's never a good thing. But it happens. I mean, we all know, we've all been in that mediation when it's done. It's just a matter of making sure that when we get there, before that, 99% of the time we've got everything, so we have a full evaluation of what we have.
Yeah, and it's not going to come in that it's X over. I mean, there are of course times that I've been sitting in mediations that I've evaluated the case at a certain number. The client's on board with that number. The plaintiff's always at their number, and sometimes the mediator it comes higher than your number,
Yep.
and they sometimes, and maybe it's not too far off, but it sometimes it becomes apparent, like, no, like we're not going to get, like, even though this is our number and I think it's fairly evaluated, sometimes it just, your number, it's not getting there.
Yeah.
And a lot of times the mediators sometimes can do disservice with it a little bit too when they put that number on it, because then it gets the plaintiff set.
It is. There's always this thing of, I completely agree. The mediator's proposal, right? That's always an interesting dynamic. But yeah, if you get in there and you get a mediator that gives a number higher, because you know that you'd like to think the mediator went into the other side and said, all right, I think it's this, and they're coming into yours and they're saying it's this, right? And you're trying to get to that middle thing. But I'm always concerned is the mediator giving them this false sense of what they think it is. Again, it's one person's view of the case who's read this briefs for, a day, maybe, looked through it all and trying to do some evaluation. And again, ultimately I'd love to be a mediator at some point in time in my later part of my career, but that's what their job is. And it's tough. It's a tough gig to try to do it, because you're not looking at the witnesses. You don't know how everybody's going to play and all that. They're just trying to get a value on it. But when they put that higher number on it, it does put you in a difficult position, because the expectations on the other side then raise, and then you're farther apart, honestly, sometimes than you even were. So, sometimes the mediator proposals are good things, sometimes they're not, but it does at least put people on the clock, so to speak.
Yeah.
And you at least have some idea of, kind of what the other side may be thinking. So I've seen mediators proposals work both ways. It's been a good thing. Hey, let's get to it. Especially when it's been a really good mediator who's really hammered both sides on the case, and like, this is where I think it's going to be, and it puts a number out there that I'm like, man, I really have to think about that. Like, the downside could be there. I've got to think about the policyholder. Does this make a lot of sense? Too many times I worry that the plaintiff's attorneys, again, coming from a defense side, although I clerked for a plaintiff's firm when I was in law school, but you come in from a the defense side or the plaintiff side of the house, they've given these expectations to their clients. I think that's always part of the problem too. Oh yeah, I can get you this amount of money. And then when that amount of money is not coming, then that creates a problem with an expectation. So that's why, there's certain plaintiff's attorneys that can be difficult to work with like that.
Oh, sure. And I mean, and you have to know the players that you're working with too. And that's why choosing mediator is very important
Huge.
because, you know, and sometimes it's hard, or I think a lot of times it's hard because you have to understand the back relationships and between that
Sure.
could be there. But then if you're trying someone completely new, you don't know. So I think it's a difficult process to, kind of navigate through, or a very important process to navigate through.
It is. And, a lot of times the mediators are retired judges, or, I always love the one where you find out the plaintiff went to law school with the guy, or the woman that's the mediator now, she worked in the firm there's all kinds of relationships. So being able to understand that, because you see that happen all the time. So yeah, I think in a mediator, especially depending on the type of case, I think you're trusting your counsel to have done research, understand the mediator, the background, whether he or she is, what that relationship is, and are they the right person for this case? It's a difficult case. There's a lot of sympathy in a case, let's say, right? Are they going to be able to work through that when, sympathy versus liability? I don't have very much liability, but I've got a very injured, or, the plaintiff has passed away, and there's a lot of, emotion in that situation, and being able to kind of work through that emotional part of it to do it it's a skill, to be honest with you. And so trying to find the mediator that's able to do that, especially on a really difficult case, I think is sometimes, it can make or break a case, just to be honest with you, as far as whether you're going to get it resolved.
And also being mindful of going to the mediator that usually handles like the very high exposure cases, and say you don't have such a high exposure case, they might already put a higher number on it out of just pure, like, it's just what they normally are used to seeing, these multi-million-dollar cases. And then you have this, smaller sprain, strain, or whatever it could be, and they might attach larger numbers to it just because that's the norm for them. So, I mean, that's definitely a challenge.